a job, even if it is a BPO like Murli said. So that's where we need to go. And that's collectively what you can do. I mean, that's what NASSCOM did. NASSCOM never existed in the early 80s. So I think that's the mindset transformation you need to actually get in there.
At this stage, I think we have enough that we have possibly discussed, but I would like to draw your questions. Pick anybody you want to ask. We've possibly covered some ground, some we may not have in the same context. Introduce yourself and ask the question.
Sir, I'm Saurabh Srivastava. I'm from IDS Infotech Chandigarh, Mohali. And our is a ITES BPO company. A lot of perspectives were being discussed, and my questions were just coming in my mind. There's the other side which I want to just discuss with you. Like, I hope a lot of us would be familiar with kind of BPM industry, how it works, what kind of challenges, what if clients, uncertain environments are there where one day we'll just receive a mail from existing client that we need probably such skill set, and we are trying to explore possibilities to outsource to you. We don't know. Even the contract is also not in the place at present. The contract is for CEMEX services. We don't know the longevity. My CEO would come and call me. We'll have discussion, and then he'll say, can we have these people on board for and very niche specialized skill sets on IT software development. So, for example, Android or maybe DB or maybe XYZ. And then the challenge is obviously in my mind, we don't know about the work itself, whether it's going to exist or not. And being in our region, we are known, people look upon.
What's the question?
So question is regarding, I've found even the software professionals, even the high-skilled people, they're also not cool with flexi. Because they don't want to take that challenge or step beyond. They still want a permanent job. They don't want to come and work with us for a time-based projects. So there's other perspective which I just wanted to bring. It's just not the people or just the non-core activities we are outsourcing, or we are getting flexi people. We want flexi people to work with. Even the core activities that we are into. Because the nature of, in BPM industry, the nature of business is so uncertain due to our client requirements that yes, we want flexi staff, but we have to struggle with their mindsets. This was my perspective.
That's your comment. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, Shri Kumar. Sorry, I cited him first.
No. Yeah, there's a question to Dilip. Dilip, if you look at the evolved companies, evolved countries like UK, I mean Europe predominantly, it is these. You have specialized staffing companies. I mean, you have companies for healthcare, you have companies for, let's say, gem and jewels and things like that. So where do you see NS companies moving into the staffing? Because it's just a small gap that they need to move into, because it's jobs, it's training and the jobs. So do you see a lot of these training companies moving into the staffing realm?
I think some already are doing it, because especially if you look at the construction space, not necessarily in gems and jewelry. Others are encouraging staffing companies to be formed out of the people that they train. And I think Murni might give you a more clear example of that. And interestingly, you're finding organizationally companies, not necessarily staffing companies, are organizing people who are self-employed, but they're actually entrepreneurs, plumbers, carpenters, and all are entrepreneurs. They don't come in there to enable, and it's information arbitrage which they're doing. It's a .com kind of initiative, so that if you just dial or ask me or something like that, you actually get to know where these people are, right? So you're seeing that also emerging. And why it's happening is, and for example, the IT example just taken there was an IT company that advertised the same job 47 times. Okay? It's a true story. 47 times they advertised the job, no one came in. So somebody mentioned, I said, why don't you increase the salary by 70%? It was a very short-term job to discover, and they'd spend more on advertisement, right? You'll most probably spend more on advertisement on a job than the 1 month's placement salary if you want to give a person. And they did that, and they got, I think, 800 applications, and it was filled in 1 week. So it depends on how you position a job and what you do. The training companies are getting into this area because they have to prove to certain people that those people are employed for, let's say, over 3 months or a year, and they can't trust anyone else to do it, so they're doing it themselves. But they can easily outsource it to a staffing company.
Shri, the only person who has visibility to Murali's plans is Dilip, so it's a good question. But I think I'll deflect that to Murali and ask him, Murali, when are you going to join ISF?
I'm part of it anyway. Your panels anyway. Then I think it's important. Before we started this session, we said instead of looking at it from macro perspective, let's look at it from the individual's perspective. So a couple of observations and couple of points to ponder. One is that we know that less than 10% of the people actually who are employable are employed. So any discussion we take here runs the risk that we are basing our conclusions on a sample which is less than 10% of the population. Yep. So that's my first point. And I'm stating this because in the next few years, the kind of people who will come into the job market geographically in terms of, and many of them are moving out from agriculture to this thing, their profiles are going to be very different. So if you today ask or check whether is temp, is it cool? For one set of people it is not, because the option that they have, alternative that they have is very different. For other set of people, it could be a ticket for better life, better livelihood. I think that's one point that I wanted to make to all of us sitting here. Second point, I think, is that as far as the individual is concerned, the individual is not bothered whether there is a skill development happening, there is a screening happening, there is a matching happening with the, with the employer. So if I'm a person who wants a job, I'd rather deal with one set of people or one window which gives me everything. And I think we need to move to that. Earlier on, when we used to buy computers, we had to buy hardware from somewhere, we had to buy software from somewhere, we had to go and buy some special software for us to run ACAD and for us to run project management, etc., etc., etc. Today, when you and I buy a mobile phone, we don't buy anything else. Everything else, there is an ecosystem provided, and we just deal with one entity. Yes or no? Right? Those of us who have been in the old IT industry framework, there used to be system software, then application software, then there used to be user training people, then there used to be hardware people, and so on and so forth, and network people. But today it's seamless. So similarly, if you put the person who wants a job at the center of it, the experience of finding a job should be as seamless for him as is it for you and me when we go and buy a smartphone. That's the direction, I think, in which we need to move. And therefore, Dilip and Kamal, I think, to me, the synergy between the so-called training providers and staffing companies, I think it's staring at us in the face. Because to the student, it is placement in whatever form. That's the most important proposition. Whether you do skill development, whether you do livelihood, whatever is the input you give is not very, very important. In fact, I'm looking forward to a lot more strategic partnerships happening between skilling companies and staffing companies.
So there is already one strategic partnership between CII, NSDC, and staffing company on apprenticeships. It's already there. We also have another staffing company partnering us, or two other staffing companies partnering us in Iran, right? Yeah. And a lot of the placement companies are approaching us because they're saying that we want people whom we can hire and place. But some of the staffing companies have not actually looked at that, other than the 3 examples. I mean, not name them, but other than the 3 examples. But there's a huge opportunity. I'm sure, I think even the DGET would have mentioned it in his address in the morning.
Can I ask a question? Yeah, I'm Garima Mathur from Randstad. Thanks for making this session really interesting with your expert views. So you talked about mindset transformation and the diverse needs and the changing preferences when it comes to flexi working. So my question to you is, what in your opinion are the 3 focus areas, while designing strategies to make flexi cool and considering the diverse needs in mind and the cultural change? So what do you think should be the topmost areas that needs our attention?
Okay. So let me I want to do one of these. Permanent employees need to start considering themselves as being on contract and need to know that they are permanent till the day they're fired or they exit. There is no such thing as a permanent job, other than maybe in the government. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about the government, but there is truly no such thing as a permanent job. And it takes leaders of companies to think that way, to change their mindset, to be able to change it in the organization. Okay, so I would say I know it's philosophical, but we need to all think about it. 2, we do need to think about having more or employing more flexi staff in the non-traditional things. Whenever we talk about flexi staff, warehousing, logistics, customer service, why is it that we don't think of flexi staff in managerial positions? I haven't understood that. Why can a people manager not be a contract person? Why can a people manager not work out of home? What is this thing that we have about they have to be under my eye, in the office all the time? It's a question we have to ask ourselves and say, is that one thing that we should change? Let's start looking at more flexible roles for people across the organization, across multiple levels. The maximum impact, yes, is probably at the bottom because of the numbers, but there's also a culture that we need to build, so we may need to do it top down, and why not? Third, anyone else who wants to?
So I think I just want to say that, if you take one sector which is very, very close to the national capital region, but is not in, is the auto sector, right? Or the garmenting sector. These are 2 very interesting sectors in and around Delhi, which are seasonal. So twice a year, the auto sector needs to actually ramp up and maybe work on 3 shifts, maybe not last year, but generally, because they have to meet either the festival demand or the Diwali demand. And those workers actually are on contract, and they're only on contract for part of the year, right? So if you were to ask this question to them, they would say, we don't mind being on contract, but can we be in contract for the whole year, right? And if you're working at X thousand rupees this year, and if all the other people are getting an increment of X% and a bonus of Y, can we also get the same thing? If you remove the distinctions between what are seen as career paths and salaries and wages, then perhaps flexi may be cool.
Can I ask you a question, please? Yeah. Can I? Yeah. Should I? Okay. My name is Vijay Kumar, and I'm a part of Flexi Managers. So we provide actually middle and senior people to corporates. But I have a couple of challenges when it comes to corporates. I just wanted to take the views of the panel. One is when we talk about